Welcome back, friends, to part 2 of the Flame Behemoths on Unfair. You can see the status of my squad below, barely upgraded, really. We've just got a fully upgraded teleporter, and that's about it, aside from a couple pilot level up abilities. So I'm considering my next island to tackle, and I'm still too reliant on fire damage to comfortably take on Archive, that has the Smoldering Scion. And similarly, Detritus would benefit if I had a weapon that dealt direct damage due to the acid. So I decide to take on RST, and it's going to be a tough fight, because we've got the Blast Scion, which has the explosive death throws, and Leapers, which have only 1 HP. So we could be in for some trouble. But with a fully upgraded teleporter, we've actually got a decent answer to Diggers. So I have kind of two unfortunate mission objectives. I've got destroy 2 mountains, kill 7 enemies, or kill 7 enemies, defend the coal plant. I am not confident I'm going to be able to kill 7 enemies, so it's looking like, again, I'm probably going to not get a perfect island reward for RST. So with that knowledge, my best option is just to try to keep the grid as alive as possible. So we've got a Blast Scion right off the bat, a regular Hornet, and then the rest are Alphas, a Gastropod, a Leaper, and a Digger. I'm trying to deploy my mechs in such a way that I hope I can bait the Digger into attacking my mechs instead of attacking the grid. That would be ideal. We've got a couple of the fake decoy buildings that will explode, so those are handy to have, you know, if fortune goes our way. And then, yeah, see, look at that. I'm basically, that's guaranteeing that the Digger is going to attack the grid. I maybe would have been better off placing the swap mech like 1 tile to the west. But we get our time pod for the island right off the bat, which is, you know, nice to have early. So we have 2 threats to the grid. I could blow up that Alpha Leaper with the fake building, but then its death throws would destroy the time pod, which is not ideal. You know, every power core, every time pod is very precious to us, especially if we are, you know, almost guaranteed to not have the perfect island reward. So we can just dump that Digger in the ocean, and we won't have to worry about it anymore. And then I can block the Gastropod's attack with the Hornet. So that leaves a free action, essentially, for the Meteor mech. But I think I do a little bit of a misplay here. Oh no, I just like the Blast Scion on fire. That's okay. I'm basically forfeiting one of my decoy buildings, but, you know, it's fine. It's not a real grid building, so we will take that while we can. We're up to a functional 3v3 on this turn, but the Blast Scion is about cooked, as they say. And we have only 1 legitimate threat to the grid, which is handy. Here we go. This is the misplay. I know I did a misplay at one point. I enthusiastically kill that Gastropod and then wind up destroying the time pod accidentally. Whoopsie daisy. So we use our temporal reset. Lesson learned. Now I get rid of the Gastropod. Okay. But now I face a little bit of a problem. I've already used up my temporal reset. And, there's no way to safely push that Leaper away without getting hit by the Gastropod. So I have to either give up 2 grid health or make a pilot sacrifice. I did not really think things through. Instead of killing that gastropod, I should have pushed the other gastropod into the smoke. I could have done this with the meteor mech. And then I could have safely pushed the leaper away with either the flame mech or the swap mech. So we are seeing here the results of foolishly being too hasty, especially after using a temporal reset. I was a big old silly goose. So I elect to make the sacrifice play. I'm going to get Carl out of the way because he's got a +1 mech reactor special ability, and I deemed that more valuable than the pilot with adrenaline. So it's the cruel calculus. And I will be now down a mech action for the remainder of the mission. I'm hoping that the digger boulders will impede new enemies, and of course I get 2 hornets instead. So we are in for a world of hurt here, and I've got really no one to blame for it but myself. In my bloodlust to, kill that one gastropod, I am now looking down the barrel of bad times extravaganza. The flame mech is in no position to help anything. So not only am I going to fail the kill 7 enemies mission objective in all likelihood, I'm also going to fail the protect the coal plant objective. So this run is going poorly. The best I can come up with is to block a spawn and then try to get the Vec to kill each other. We are going to be losing 2 grid health, and we will not be getting any grid healed as a mission reward. So I definitely had the feeling, once again, like this run was going to be ending here. So now we are at a 4v2. It's our final turn, and while we can blow up that Alpha Hornet, the Meteor Mech cannot position itself in such a way to get the, to do anything else to save that last piece of grid health. Because if that building blows up, the gastropod will just attack through it. So, that grid building that's being threatened by the normal Hornet, it's being functionally targeted by 2 Vec. There's basically nothing I can do to save it. Best I can do is to try and squeeze out a little bit of experience, and then I will be down to 1 grid health. 1 measly bit of grid health. So that is our first mission, and it's a complete and total failure. Actually, look at that. I did manage to kill 7 enemies. Hilarious. So, partial success. At least I get a piece of, I get a point of reputation. But we really were looking to get the grid health repaired, and now we are in dire straits. But a glimmer of hope shines down. We get the ice beam. I have not showcased the ice beam, but if you're familiar with the series at all by this point, you would know that anything that involves the word ice is very strong. The frost beam, not the ice beam, the frost beam targets everything in a line, and then stops if it hits a mountain or a grid building. And it freezes anything that it touches, and it does not freeze the user. So it's more limited in the area it can affect than the ice generator, but it is, in some ways, even better. It's really great on a mech that can fly. You can really maneuver it where you need it to go. So I desperately need to increase my grid health. So we're going to take this mission here. My objective is to block Vex spawns. I'm not sure if I will be able to do that successfully, but I need to keep the grid alive, no matter what. We've got the Blast Scion, which is a problem, 2 gastropods and an Alpha Hornet, and then a regular Digger. So, one mistake, and it was all for naught. But we do have our new beam toy. So I position my mechs in such a way that I'm hoping the enemy will line up for me. And if they do, we can freeze, multiple enemies at once. So we have 3 threats to the grid, of which we can accept none of them. And we have limited options. So I can block the gastropod's attack with the Digger. That's a 2-for-1. But we still have this Hornet to deal with. Fortunately, the Meteor Mech can push it out of the way. And then we can try to finish off the Blast Scion so that we don't have to worry about it anymore, and that's a pretty clean solve. So we will be down to a functional 4v3 with a little bit of chip damage distributed. And we still have not used our Ice Beam. Our Frost Beam, rather. It's kind of a silly name. I like Ice Beam more. Frost implies a much more mild sort of weather effect. So we have 2 threats to the grid, but we can handle the Leaper easily enough. Then I try to get some spawn blocking going. And even though this trick will not block the spawn, it will kill the gastropod if I swap places with it. And I am considering doing that. Actually, I think I have to, because the boulder will be destroyed if initiative shakes out differently. There we go. So we're not getting a spawn, but the gastropod will commit Sudoku, as it will pull itself adjacent to the mountain. I'm glad I caught that before committing to the Vex spawn block. There we go. And of course it's just replaced by another gastropod, but it's fine. That burning gastropod is no longer a threat. It's down to 1 HP, so we don't have to worry about it. So this turn is basically a 2v3 my favor. But we've got more spawns on the way. The Meteor Mech will continue to wrangle the Hornet. And then I think I just commit to doing spawn blocking. So our final turn... Oh, look at that. I used the Ice Beam. Ralph will be broken out of the ice thanks to the Vex spawn. And that's 1 less gastropod we have to worry about. So our final turn, we just need to juggle a pair of Alpha Hornets. Should be doable. And, I reshuffled my power cores such that instead of the fully upgraded teleporter, we can use the Frost Beam twice. And that is probably more valuable. So we thread the needle. And we also get enough, we have blocked the Vec at least 3 times. So we're, no longer on emergency life support. But I do not like Rust Beach. That mission has the infinitely spawning Hornet holes. And Hornets are just bad. So instead I elect to do the Do Not Kill the Volatile Vec mission. Since I have the Frost Beam, I'm hoping that I can just freeze the Volatile Vec and not really have to worry about it. But this is a bit of a weird map seed. We'll see how it shakes out. I don't like that the shielded buildings are all in the back row. It's a less useful position for them to be in. But at least the Volatile had no valid targets for the first turn. So we have 2 legitimate threats to the grid, and then 2 threats to the shielded buildings. It would be nice to maintain the shields if I could, but I'm not sure I can. And that was a terrible play. I think we're going to have to reset. That was extremely dumb. I'm not going to be able to finish off the gastropod. It'll then attack the grid or kill my mech. Yep, there we go. That was a poor choice. Time to do better. There we go. That's what I saw myself. Now, I should push the Alpha Gastropod with the Meteor Mech, and then we can freeze 3 enemies. There we go. Much better. So we will have a big line of frozen enemies. This will hopefully delay any other ground-based units that emerge, and it should distract the Volatile Vec. And all we had to lose was 1 shielded building. And our temporal reset. Whoops. So we have 2 threats to the grid, and the Volatile is threatening to free one of the Alpha Gastropods. But we can live with that if need be. So I've been a little bit too hasty in my actions, so you can see me now positioning and not committing to actions until I'm more certain that the outcome will be desirable. So this way I managed to get things out of the way. Ralph doesn't have very many good options at the moment. That's okay. Unfortunately, the next turn we will be looking at a 5v3. I'm just hoping we don't see more Hornets. And of course we do. Because why would anything nice happen? So we have 3 legitimate threats to the grid. This is going to be a tricky little turn. But I look at the initiative order, and I notice that the northeasternmost Hornet is on a sand tile. So, if I push the Volatile Vec and have it attack the Hornet, I'll get a 2-for-1. And I believe that the Meteor Mech is the best candidate for the job. The Swap Mech could also have done the task, but this way I will light the Alpha Hornet on fire. So now we just have to figure out a solve for the Gastropod. And I elect to... I think think my best bet is to freeze it, because the flame mech will just get in the way. Yep. So once again, Ralph doesn't have anything to do. He's just been kind of in a bad position this whole mission. So our final turn is going to be a 3v3. So finally, I believe Ralph can make himself useful here. He can do sufficient damage to that burning Alpha Hornet to take it out. I just needed the swap mech to get one extra tile of movement, so I give it an assist with the meteor mech. And we will be in the clear. Good job, past self. You did not give in to despair. It's interesting now that we see the missions end with, like, you know, half the map frozen and then half the map on fire. It's a cool vibe. So we've got our last mission choice now before the boss fight. Defend the Earth Mover with a potential bonus power core, if I can thread the needle. Or a Windstorm mission with a grid restoration objective. And I am so desperate for grid health that I'm heavily leaning towards the mission on the Scar. As nice as a bonus power core would be. So after some deliberation, I indeed go for the protect the power generator objective. And, you know, if I take 3 grid damage, I just fail the game. So this mission objective is functionally a non-issue. Take less than 3 grid damage. So you can see me trying to position my mechs to bait the Digger. We also have Alpha Leaper, Alpha Gastropod, a regular Gastropod. We've got that pesky Blast Scion to deal with. So this mission is interesting in that there's a windstorm. It will push everything every turn. So we have functionally 2 threats to the grid here. We've got the Leaper and the regular Gastropod. We can ignore everything else. Our baiting was successful. You need to be careful with this mission type. Depending on the direction the wind is blowing, you are liable to get bump damage on the grid. So I'm considering my options here. We can negate the threat of that Gastropod easily enough. But then that leaves the Meteor Mech with not a lot to do. I could have done things a little bit differently and had the Meteor Mech just take a hit from the Digger, light the Alpha Leaper on fire, and then had it die. Instead, I light the Digger on fire. You know, it's fine. It's a decent enough solve. Certainly not worth using the temporal reset on just yet. And look at that! I get to kill the Digger. Not sure if I saw that legitimately or if I saw it accidentally. We can pretend it was legitimate. We can pretend that I'm a better strategic mastermind than I claim to be. So now the wind is moving in the opposite direction, but at least nothing is going to be pushed into the grid. We do have to worry about the Blast Scion now. If the Alpha Leaper dies next to the grid, we have problems. So I think I like to just safely push it out of the way. We can get Ralph out of the way. And then we can kill the Blast Scion with a little switcheroo. So I believe that that leaves the Alpha Leaper in the ignorable range of HP. You know, it's on fire, and I think it currently has 2 HP. So yeah, it is no longer a threat. So we'll be at a functional 4v3 on our next turn, with no more exploding death throws to worry about. We have a problem now with the northernmost alpha gastropod. It will be blown into the grid unless we address it, which we can. And then we have no other legitimate threats to the grid. We just have the Leaper to worry about. Actually, the Leaper's prey will be blown out of the way. So with only 2 turns remaining and 2 uses of the Frost Beam, I decide to just freeze that Alpha Leaper. We don't have to worry about any more web problems. And then the Meteor Mech ultimately didn't have a good option available to it. Because if I tried to light the spawn spot on fire, I would be pushing the frozen Leaper, and then it would just get freed immediately by the gastropod after it was moved by the wind. I could have used some... Yeah. Do I still commit to that? No. I could also have pushed the on-fire normal gastropod into the Meteor Mech and done a little bit of bump damage, but I just decided to do nothing. It's fine. Our final turn will be a 3v3. And we luck out. No one is attacking the grid. So we could just end the mission here. But it's always nice to see if I can't squeeze out a little bit of experience for my pilots. And that is another successful mission. And our grid health is finally back to, you know, par from where we started the run. But it's a bummer that we will be denied 2 perfect island rewards. We are definitely going to be thirsty for power cores. Our one bit of consolation is that we have the Frost Beam. So our final mission is against the Firefly leader. And we also have other problems in the form of the Blast Scion, a pair of Leapers, and a Digger. Now, I can expect the Firefly leader to be assaulting the grid on the western side of the board. And I also expect the Digger to attack the corporate tower. This is anyway, these are my predictions for where the enemy is going to move. So with that knowledge, that will inform where I want to deploy. So I'm putting Flame Mech near the boss to try and wrangle the action over there. The Meteor Mech is in the middle as my sort of flex spot. And then I can put the Swap Mech in such a position as to try and, I'm hoping, freeze the Digger and, you know, provide a kind of barricade of frozen obstacles in front of the corporate tower. So we'll see how this goes. So, as predicted, the Firefly leader does the 2-for-1. As predicted, the Digger attacks the corporate tower, and then it's hard to predict where the Leapers will go because they can kind of ignore obstacles when they jump. One nice thing here is I can light the Alpha Firefly on fire and kill the Alpha Leaper. The downside is that the Alpha Leaper will explode and do 1 damage to the grid. And I could not see a way to also prevent the normal Leaper from not exploding and damaging the grid if I wanted to kill it. I could just have safely pushed it away by targeting the grid tile that the Leaper itself is trying to attack. But, you know, that'll just mean I've got one more thing to worry about on the next turn. So a bit of a catch-22. You know, do I kill the Leaper now, take 1 grid damage, and then I won't have to worry about more webbing? In the meantime, I do my original plan of just freezing everything in front of the corporate tower. Do I pick peace or carnage? I pick carnage. Ooh. I woke up and chose violence, so we're going to take 2 grid damage, which is a bummer. Ouch. We really need to take out the Blast Scion, if at all possible. And we can fortunately do just that. And we will be prepping the Alpha Firefly. Basically, it is no longer a threat. It's at 2 HP and burning. So on the next turn, it will die. And it will take out the Blast Scion for us, which is nice. Then we can cancel out the Gastropod's attack and get a spawn block in. With a little extra teleport movement. So, you know, despite taking 2 grid damage, at least we're going to, you know, be on track to finish this mission off in stride. And we have 1 legitimate threat to the grid. Which the Meteor Mech can handle. Then Ralph doesn't really have very much to do, but he's also kind of out of position. So I decided to just put him, you know, closer to where he needs to be. It's always a good idea, too, if you've got a spare action and nothing else to do, to just light a random tile on fire. You know, you're immune to fire, and you're only going to be inconveniencing the Vec or dissuading them from moving to a specific spot. So it's our final turn, a 3v3. Hornets and gastropods. We can ignore the gastropod. And that is game. We wrap up RST, and we're in rough shape. We ended with less grid health than we started. So I'm hoping for a decent final island, you know, reputation shop. Still no pilot to replace our dead one. It was a rough one. But as I said in the title card, can the Flame Behemoths reemerge like a phoenix from the ashes? We'll see. In the shop, I have Smoke Drop, Nanofilter Mending, and the Thermal Discharger, which is interesting. I elect to pick up the Smoke Drop. It is a very powerful tool, and I'll be showcasing it in the next video. I could have gone with 2 power cores, But I elected to instead do 1 power core and grab that smoke drop. I believe that I will equip it to the flame mech, since oftentimes the flame mech, it just doesn't have the range to impact the board at certain locations. And I will put flame shielding on the meteor mech for now. So my power core, I put into the meteor mech for movement, because I was definitely feeling the hurt occasionally. So join me for next time. Can I salvage this run? We will see.